Let me speak to you not as a fighter, not as a legend, not as someone whose face you've seen on posters, but as a human being who walked through pain, who stared into chaos, who was ridiculed, doubted, underestimated, and yet never gave his power away. There is a secret I learned, not through books, but through experience, sweat, silence, and endless hours of self-mastery. The secret is this: when you act like nothing bothers you, you begin to reshape the world around you. You stop chasing control over others, and instead, you gain control over yourself. And when you have that true internal self-control, nothing on the outside can shake you. Not because you don't feel, but because you've trained your mind to respond, not react. That is real strength. That is how warriors are born. And that is how you must live unshaken, undisturbed, untouchable. One, stillness is a weapon. Use it against chaos, not yourself. There is a quiet force that lives inside every disciplined person, a kind of inner stillness that radiates calm even in the middle of chaos. But sadly, most people never discover it. Why? Because the world constantly teaches them the opposite. From a young age, society pushes you to be loud, to be heard, to react quickly, to defend your ego, to prove yourself, and to meet every challenge with emotion. You're taught that if you don't react, you'll be seen as weak, that if you stay silent, you'll be overlooked. But that's a lie. Real strength is never loud. True power doesn't scream, it waits, watches, and then moves with precision. I discovered this the hard way. There were moments in my life, especially in the ring, when my opponent wanted me to explode. They insulted me, they tried to break my rhythm, they threw cheap shots, not just with their hands, but with their words. They wanted me to react, because a reaction is easy to control. They weren't trying to hurt me physically, they were trying to break my center, to get inside my head. But I never let them. I never gave them that satisfaction. You see, when someone tries to force a reaction out of you, when they push your buttons, spread rumors, twist your words, or challenge your worth, they're not doing it to learn something real about you. They're doing it to gain control over you. They want to own your attention, direct your energy, and drag you into a game they control. And the moment you respond emotionally, especially with anger or defensiveness, you give them the remote control to your emotions. You let them choose what you feel, how you think, and what you do next. That's why stillness is a weapon. Because stillness means you are not reacting blindly, you are observing wisely, you're not giving your power away just because someone tried to pull you into chaos. You're studying the moment, you're conserving your energy, you're seeing through their tactics. In martial arts, this was everything. I would never show frustration, not even when I missed a strike or took a hard hit. I kept my breathing steady, my face calm, my movements thoughtful, because I knew the moment I started to fight with emotion, I would lose precision. And precision wins, fights not, panic. The same is true outside of fighting. In daily life, people around you may try to provoke you. Some will do it consciously, others will do it because their own emotions are out of control. But either way, don't let them decide who you are in that moment. Stay still, not because you're afraid, not because you don't know what to say, but because you're letting the storm pass before you act. Stillness doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. It means you are seeing clearly while everyone else is swinging in the dark. Stillness gives you space between the stimulus and your response. And in that space, you take back your freedom. You choose your next move with clarity, not out of fear, not out of pride, but out of purpose. That is how you rise above conflict. That is how you turn chaos into peace. Not by shouting over the noise, but by stepping into your own silence and letting your presence speak louder than any word could. So when life throws chaos at you, breathe. When someone disrespects, you pause. When you feel the urge to react, observe. Because stillness doesn't just protect your peace, it sharpens your mind. It focuses your strength. And over time, it builds a version of you that cannot be shaken by anything or anyone. Be still not because you are empty, but because you are full of power that doesn't need to be proved. 2, emotional discipline is the realest strength you'll ever know. If you want to become truly powerful, not just in your body, but in your presence, in your relationships, in every room you walk into, then you must understand one thing. Emotional discipline is not just important, it is everything. It's the foundation upon which all greatness is built. The truth is, your emotions can either be your greatest weapon or your worst weakness. And the only thing that decides which one it becomes is you. There was a time when I used to think that reacting strongly, emotionally, and quickly was a sign of strength. That to stand up for myself meant I had to yell louder, fight harder, or prove something to the world. But what I learned through hardship, heartbreak, and thousands of hours of self-reflection is that anyone can explode. Anyone can lash out. That doesn't take mastery. That takes impulse. That takes lack of control. And lack of control is not strength, it is vulnerability disguised as pride. Real strength is calm in the middle of fire. It is presence in the middle of pressure. It's when you feel the anger rise inside your chest, when your ego screams to be defended, when every part of you wants to clap back or get revenge and you don't. Not because you're weak, not because you're afraid, but because you choose to stay in command of yourself. That is discipline. That is power. That is freedom. You see, most people walk through life like puppets, reacting to every word, every insult, every situation. One negative comment, and their whole mood changes. One rejection, and they fall apart. One misunderstanding, and they spiral into anxiety or rage. That is not how a warrior lives. That is not how a master operates. That is how the average person survives being at the mercy of everything outside of them. But I refuse to be average, and so must you. When I trained in martial arts, it wasn't just my body I was sharpening. It was my emotions, my patience, my presence. Because in a fight, the one who loses control first usually loses everything. I had to train myself to breathe through pain, to smile through doubt, to focus through noise. I didn't do it to impress anyone. I did it to be free from everything that tried to control me. Think about it. If a person can make you angry just by saying something, they have power over you. If a situation can ruin your entire day, it owns you. But if you remain grounded, if you can hear criticism without reacting, if you can receive disrespect without being pulled into chaos, if you can walk away from conflict without needing to prove anything, then you have real strength. Because you are no longer tied to what others say, do, or think. You are anchored in your own self-mastery. And make no mistake, this kind of mastery is not given, it's built, it's earned, day by day, situation by situation. It's in the moments when your pride is challenged and you choose silence instead of screaming. It's in the moments when you feel disrespected and you choose to walk away with dignity instead of throwing away your peace. Those are the quiet battles that no one sees, but those are the battles that define you. People often ask me, Bruce, how do you stay so focused, so composed? And I always told them, because I've trained my emotions harder than I've trained my fists. My fists are fast, yes, but my awareness is faster. My body is sharp, but my mind is sharper. That's why I win before the fight even begins. Because I've already won inside myself. If you want to evolve, you must stop letting temporary emotions destroy permanent progress. You must stop giving emotional responses to people who don't deserve your energy, your peace, is too valuable. Your vision is too important. Your soul is too sacred to be handed over to every fool who wants a reaction from you. So from this day forward, treat your emotions like sacred ground. Guard them, understand them, train them. Because once you master your inner world, the outer world has no power left to shake you. 3. Your energy is sacred. Stop wasting it on the unworthy. There's something I want you to understand, and I mean deeply understand, not just in your mind, but in your bones. Your energy is not infinite. It is not something to be handed out freely to every situation, every person, every argument, every petty drama that crosses your path. Your energy is your life force. It's your time, your focus, your attention, your spirit. If you keep leaking it into places that don't matter, you will have nothing left when it's time to fight for what truly does. Most people don't protect their energy. They wake up and immediately hand it over to their phone, to the news, to other people's opinions. Someone gives them a dirty look, energy gone. Someone spreads a rumor, energy gone. They get cut off in traffic. A coworker says something disrespectful. Their partner forgets to reply to a message, gone, gone, gone. Little by little, moment by moment, they are drained, exhausted, irritable, and defeated, not because life is unbearable, but because they're reacting to everything without filtering anything. Let me tell you how I handled this. When I was building my philosophy, my art, my vision, I knew I had to protect my mental and emotional state like a warrior guards his sword. I couldn't afford to get pulled into distractions. I couldn't let every critic have access to my mind. I couldn't let people who weren't walking my path decide how I felt about myself. I chose very carefully where my energy went. And that made all the difference. Understand this. Not every comment deserves your attention. Not every challenge deserves your response. Not every person deserves access to your presence. You don't owe your energy to everyone who demands it. In fact, one of the most powerful things you can do is withhold it. Consciously decide where your time, focus, and emotion go. Energy is currency. Think of it like money. Would you walk around throwing your money at people who insult you, who disrespect your dreams, who mock your effort? No, you'd hold on to it. Invest it. Use it to build something that matters. So why treat your energy with any less care? You want to know why I moved differently? Why I trained while others talked? Why I kept my circle small and my focus sharp? Because I knew my energy was sacred. I needed it for my mission. I needed it for my art, for my family, for my future. I didn't have time to waste explaining myself to people who were committed to misunderstanding me. I didn't have space in my soul for arguments that led nowhere. I didn't have hours to spend chasing approval from people who didn't even respect themselves. The moment I started treating my energy like something sacred, everything changed. My movements became cleaner. My relationships became clearer. My goals became sharper. And the noise of the world, it faded into the background. Not because it disappeared, but because I stopped feeding it. You must do the same. Start noticing where your energy leaks. Are you always explaining yourself? Are you constantly checking to see who likes you, who supports you, who doesn't? Are you replaying arguments in your head with people who no longer deserve space in your story? That's energy being bled out into the void. And if you don't stop it, it will rob you of your focus, your fire, and your future. The most successful, peaceful, and powerful people you'll ever meet all have one thing in common. They don't give their energy away freely. They are selective. They move with intention. They don't respond to every insult. They don't attend every argument. They don't give every person access to their spirit. And because of that, they rise. So if you want to rise, you must protect your energy like your life depends on it. Because it does. Train your mind to recognize distractions disguised as obligations. Walk away from people who drain your spirit. Even if they say they love you, Withdraw your energy from places that don't honor your peace. And above all, stop reacting to everything. Act like nothing bothers you, not because you're numb, but because your energy is too sacred to waste on anything that doesn't feed your purpose. 4. Let them test you. It will reveal their weakness, not yours. I want you to prepare yourself for something that's guaranteed to happen the moment you start growing. People will test you. The moment you begin to act calm, stay composed, and carry yourself with self-control, they will feel uncomfortable. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your stillness reflects their chaos. Your confidence exposes their insecurity, and your silence disrupts the game they're used to playing. And so, they will test you not to know your truth, but to try to shake your foundation. Let them. You see, when you begin to move differently, when you stop reacting to every little thing, when you walk away from petty arguments, when you carry peace, instead of proving points, people who are still trapped in emotional chaos won't understand you. They'll call you cold. They'll call you arrogant. Some will even say you're weak for not fighting back. That's fine. Let them talk. Because their misunderstanding of your calm is a reflection of their storm, not your strength. When I started teaching martial arts and philosophy, there were people who tried to tear me down. Not just with words, but with subtle disrespect, open skepticism, and constant challenges to my ideas. They couldn't accept that someone young, someone from the East, someone who didn't look or sound like their heroes, could possibly walk in such confidence. So they tested me, publicly, privately. They waited for me to crack. But I didn't. Not because I didn't feel the weight of it all, but because I trained for this. You must understand life is a training ground. Every insult, every rejection, every test someone throws at you is not a threat. It is a mirror. It shows you where you still react, where your ego still itches, where you still bleed when poked. And if you learn to stand still in the fire, if you learn to breathe instead of burst, to respond with grace instead of noise, you begin to discover something rare. Their test has nothing to do with your weakness. It exposes theirs. People test you for one reason. They are uncomfortable with your power. And so they try to disturb your calm, not to destroy you, but to bring you down to their level. Because if they can make you explode, if they can trigger you, they can feel justified in their own lack of control. Don't give them that satisfaction. In a fight, I learned that the moment you react emotionally to your opponent's taunts, you've already started losing. They own your focus, they control your timing, they manipulate your spirit. But if you stay compositive, you observe, calculate, and choose your moment, you become unpredictable. You become untouchable. And the same applies to life. Let them test your silence with noise. Let them test your discipline with drama. Let them test your peace with provocation. And let them discover that you do not bend under pressure. You rise through it. Because here's the truth. Those who try to pull you into chaos are often drowning in it themselves. They want company for their suffering. They don't want your healing, your peace, your vision, because it makes them confront the fact that they too could rise but haven't. Your growth threatens their excuses. Your stillness disturbs their noise. And your refusal to react turns the spotlight on their emotional instability. So let them test you. But don't just pass the test, transcend it. Smile when they expect rage. Walk away when they expect war. Stay grounded when they throw storms. Every time you do that, you train yourself to be the calm within the chaos. Not just once, not just when it's easy, but always. It's easy to be peaceful when no one is pushing you. It's easy to stay calm when everyone is treating you well. But that's not mastery. True mastery is when you are tested by disrespect, by doubt, by challenge, and you choose to rise above it without losing yourself in it. So next time someone tries to get under your skin, don't fall for it. They are not testing you to see your strength. They are hoping to reveal a weakness that no longer exists. Prove them wrong, not with words, but with the power of restraint. Because when you stop reacting, when you refuse to lower yourself to their chaos, you win. Not in their eyes, but in your own. That is the only victory that truly matters. 5. Master the inner smile, because that's where your victory begins. There's something I used to do that no one ever saw. Not in the spotlight, not in the crowd, not in the fight. It was something quiet, internal, invisible to the world, but unshakable within me. I called it the inner smile. You see, most people look for validation from the outside. They want the applause, the nods, the recognition. And when they don't get it, they break, they collapse. Their motivation crumbles, their spirit dims. But what they never realize is that real strength, real confidence does not come from how the world sees you. It comes from how you see yourself when no one is watching. I developed this habit over time. Whenever someone doubted me, mocked my ideas, dismissed my discipline, or tried to provoke a reaction, I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't chase their understanding. I simply smiled on the inside. Not because I thought I was better, not because I didn't feel the sting of judgment, but because I knew something they didn't. I knew where I was going. I knew the work I was putting in behind the scenes. I knew that while they were focused on tearing me down, I was too busy building something they couldn't see. The inner smile is not about arrogance. It's not about pretending to be above others. It's a quiet recognition of your own path, a soft agreement with your own soul that says, let them watch, let them laugh, let them misunderstand. I'm still going forward. It's the ability to hold your peace even when everything around you feels designed to pull you out of it. It's the inner fire that tells you, no matter what happens outside, you are still in control of how you carry yourself inside. When you have that, you don't need to prove yourself constantly. You don't need to fight every battle that calls your name. You don't need to explain your silence to people who only listen for noise. You understand that some victories don't need to be seen. They only need to be felt. That inner smile becomes your armor, your compass, your fuel, and most of all, your signal that you are no longer ruled by the opinions of the crowd. Let me ask you this. How many times have you let someone else's doubt shake your confidence? How many times have you heard a negative comment and it echoed in your mind for hours? How many days have you lost chasing someone's approval, only to end up feeling more empty than before? That's because you were looking for validation in places that were never built to hold your worth. The truth is, people will doubt you for one reason only, because you're doing something different than them. Your growth threatens their comfort. Your discipline exposes their laziness. Your peace annoys their chaos. They don't actually hate you, they hate the part of themselves that sees what you're becoming. And instead of growing, they choose to project. So what do? You smile inside. You remember that you're not here to win their approval. You're here to win your own evolution. You walk into the room with silent power, not needing attention, because your energy speaks before your mouth does. You stand tall, not because people told you to, but because you know you've earned it, even if no one clapped. The inner smile is knowing that their doubt does not define your direction. It's knowing that their rejection is not your reflection. It's knowing that even if the whole world misunderstands you today, the work you do in silence will one day become undeniable. I've been there. I've stood alone. I've been ridiculed for thinking differently, training differently, expressing differently. But every time I felt that tension rise, every time I was tempted to lash out, explain, prove, I smiled inside. Because I knew the only people trying to drag you down are the ones already beneath you. Mastering the inner smile is not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally sovereign. It's about choosing peace, not because the world is peaceful, but because you are. It's about carrying calm inside your chest like a storm-proof flame, unmoved, unshaken, unbreakable. And you know the beautiful part? People can feel it. They may not see the smile, but they feel the strength. They sense the unbothered energy. They notice that they can't manipulate you the way they can with others. That you're not addicted to validation. That you don't chase applause. That you're rooted, steady, silent, but powerful. Eventually, they stop testing you. Not because you won the argument, but because you mastered the moment. And that is the real victory. So master that smile. Let it live in your chest. Let it speak when your lips are silent. Let it guide you through every insult, every challenge, every moment of doubt. Because when you carry the inner smile, you don't just walk through the fire, you walk through it untouched. 6. Reaction is a trap. Response is your superpower. I want you to burn this truth into your mind. Every time you react emotionally to something outside of you, you give away a piece of your power. You hand the keys of your mind to someone else. You become a puppet, not a master, a slave to impulse, not a warrior of intention. And the tragedy? Most people live their entire lives like this, controlled not by truth, but by triggers. You see, the world is constantly pressing on your buttons. People will insult you, betray you, test you, ignore you, reject you. Life will throw challenges, curveballs, pain, loss, and pressure. And most people, they react instantly. They explode in anger, shrink in fear, spiral in anxiety. It's automatic, it's impulsive, but it's also predictable, and predictable behavior is easy to control. And anything that's easy to control can never be powerful. But I chose another path. I chose to train not only my body, but my response. I learned to pause, to create space between what happens and how I act. That space, that gap is everything. That's where your freedom lives. That's where you step out of automatic and step into awareness. That's where you stop being a machine and become a master. In martial arts, I trained myself to read not just the movements of the opponent, but the energy. I didn't strike out of fear. I didn't move out of panic. I waited. I observed. I calculated. And when I responded, it was clean. It was precise. It wasn't a reaction, it was a decision. And this is what most people don't realize. Your greatest strength is not how fast you respond, but how well you respond. You're not strong because you shout back louder. You're strong because you choose silence when the moment demands it. You're strong because you think before you act. You pause before you speak. You understand the consequences before the damage is done. Think about it like this. Reacting is like swinging a sword in the dark. You might hit something, but you're more likely to hurt yourself. Responding is like aiming with a calm, focused hand. One move, one action, measured, clean, powerful. Now ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent swinging in the dark? How many relationships have been hurt because you reacted without thinking? How many opportunities have slipped away because you panicked? How many times have you looked back and said, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have done that? That regret, that's the cost of reaction. But there's a way out, and it starts with awareness. Begin noticing your impulses. When someone disrespects, you breathe. When you get bad news, pause. When your ego feels bruised, observe. Ask yourself, is this reaction aligned with who I truly want to be? If the answer is no, don't act. Wait, reflect, then respond. This kind of self-mastery doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice. You'll slip up. You'll fall into old patterns. But the more you practice pausing, the stronger you become. You start building a mind that is not easily disturbed, a presence that is not easily shaken. You become the eye of the storm, the still center, no matter how loud the world becomes. And here's what happens when you shift from reaction to response. People start to respect you differently. They sense your depth. They feel your power. You no longer look like someone flailing in chaos. You look like someone who cannot be moved. And that, my friend, is intimidating to the weak and magnetic to the strong. Let me be clear. I'm not saying don't feel. I'm not saying suppress your emotions. I'm saying master them. There is nothing wrong with feeling angry, but don't let anger drive your next move. There's nothing wrong with being disappointed, but don't let disappointment define your behavior. Use the emotion, don't let it use you. When you react, you give the other person the advantage. They own you. But when you respond, you own yourself. And when you own yourself, no one can take that away from you. Remember, your mind is like a blade. If you swing it recklessly, you become a danger to yourself and everyone around you. But if you train it, you sharpen it, balance it, discipline it, you become something rare. A person who moves with precision, a warrior who speaks with intention, a master who acts from truth, not from fear. So stop reacting to everything. Don't be the person who dances to every emotion, every insult, every trigger. Let them press the button and watch nothing happen. That's when you know you're in control. That's when you know you've left the world of puppets and entered the world of presence. Be still. Be aware. Be intentional. Respond with power. And leave reaction to the ones still learning who they are. 7. The world mirrors your vibe. Unbothered energy changes everything around you. There's a universal truth most people miss. The world doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you are. You could speak all the right words, dress the part, even act like you have it all together. But if your energy says, I'm insecure, I'm desperate, I'm afraid of being judged, the world will reflect that back to you. It doesn't matter what mask you wear. Energy doesn't lie. And that's why being unbothered isn't just a mindset, it's a vibration, a state of being, a silent language that everyone can feel, whether they realize it or not. When you carry peace, people feel peace. When you carry chaos, people feed you chaos. When you carry calm, grounded, untouchable presence, you shift the entire atmosphere of every room you enter. Let me explain how this played out in my own life. In the early years, when I was still trying to prove myself, prove I was strong, prove I was worthy, prove I had something to say, I noticed something strange. The harder I tried to impress others, the less seriously they took me. The more I chased their approval, the more they pulled away. That used to confuse me. I was giving everything, my heart, my truth, my talent. So why did it feel like it wasn't enough? Because my energy was off. I was leaking insecurity. Not because I didn't believe in myself, but because I wanted others to believe in me first. That's a trap. It keeps you begging for validation you should never need. But something shifted when I stopped reacting. When I stopped chasing. When I let go of the need to be understood, accepted, applauded. I started walking into rooms without trying to dominate the space. I started showing up without explaining my worth. I didn't seek attention. I became attention. Not by being loud, but by being still. Not by trying to impress, but by being completely comfortable in my own presence. That's when everything began to change. People started leaning in. They started listening deeper. They started responding to me in a new way. Not because I was louder, but because I was clearer. My energy was settled. My vibe said, I'm not here to prove anything. I'm just here to be me. Fully, calmly, powerfully. And that's the energy the world respects. You must understand, people treat you based on the energy you project. If you carry the vibe of someone who is always hurt, always offended, always chasing something, they will treat you like someone who can be easily manipulated. But if you carry the presence of someone who cannot be shaken, who does not flinch at disrespect, who chooses peace over reaction, they will adjust themselves around you. This isn't arrogance. This is awareness. When you train yourself to remain unbothered, you start to rise above the game most people are still stuck playing. You stop getting pulled into drama. You stop being a magnet for disrespect. You stop handing your self-worth to the reactions of others. Instead, you become the one who sets the emotional tone in every room. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You move slower, but your presence commands more space. You do less, but you accomplish more. That's the power of unbothered energy. It simplifies everything and multiplies your impact. So how do you cultivate this energy? It begins with knowing who you are. When you're clear on your values, your purpose, your direction, you don't react to distractions. When you've done the inner work, built self-respect, faced your shadows, you no longer need external approval to feel whole. You walk with a kind of quiet fire. You become like water still on the surface, but deep with power underneath. And when people try to test you, trigger you, pull you out of character, you don't give them the reaction they're hoping for. You let their chaos crash against the shore of your calm. You watch them get confused by your silence. You watch them become uncomfortable with their own noise. Because deep down, they were expecting to control you, but you gave them nothing to grab onto. That is real power. And here's the beautiful part. When you carry this unbothered energy long enough, your entire life begins to shift. The wrong people fall away. The right ones are drawn in. Opportunities appear where stress used to be. Clarity replaces confusion. Peace replaces performance. And you finally realize you were never meant to fight the world to be seen. You were meant to become so centered that the world could not ignore your presence. This is what I want you to take with you. You don't need to shout to be heard. You don't need to fight to be respected. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Just become so grounded, so calm, so deeply aligned with who you are that your energy does the speaking for you. Let your peace disturb their noise. Let your presence expose their emptiness. Let your unbothered nature become the mirror that shows the world what real strength looks like. Because in the end, the most powerful person is not the one who controls other sights, the one who cannot be controlled by anything outside of themselves. Be that person and watch how everything changes. 8. Unshakable calm is the highest form of dominance. Let me tell you something that will challenge everything you've been taught. The most dominant man in the room is not the loudest. It's not the one flexing his muscles, interrupting conversations, or throwing around his title like a badge. It's the one who sits back, watches everything, and says nothing because he doesn't need to. That's the level I reached, not because I was born with it, but because I earned it through discipline, through heartbreak, through disappointment, through being misunderstood, mocked, even rejected. I didn't explode. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I observed. I kept calm. And through that calm, I gained power people couldn't understand. Because here's the truth. Calmness is control. Control is clarity. And clarity is power. Unshakable calm is not the absence of emotion, it is the presence of mastery. It's when you feel everything, but still choose your response. It's when you have every reason to break, but you don't. It's when the storm is loud, but you remain silent, not because you're suppressing it, but because you've transcended it. See, people will test you, not because they are evil, but because they are insecure. And when someone lacks power, they seek to provoke it in others. If they can make you angry, if they can rattle your emotions, if they can pull you out of your center, they feel strong. And when you react, when you flinch, when you crack, they win. Not because they're better, but because you gave them your power without even realizing it. But when you remain calm, something incredible happens. You don't just take away their control, you force them to confront their own lack of it. Your calmness becomes a mirror. It reflects their chaos. It reveals their desperation. It unsettles their spirit because they realize, I cannot move him. And that realization changes everything. I want you to understand this deeply, clearly, with every part of your being. Calmness is not weakness. In fact, it's the final form of strength. It is the result of choosing growth over ego, peace over pride, focus over fury. When I was younger, I used to think dominance meant fighting, proving I was stronger, faster, more skilled. And yes, those things matter. But true dominance, that came later. It came when I no longer needed to prove anything. It came when I could walk into a room and feel no desire to compete because I had already won the battle within myself. I had nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to defend. That is unshakable calm. That is ultimate power. Let me ask you something personal. How many times have you regretted not being calm? How many times have you looked back and thought, if only I had paused, if only I hadn't reacted, if only I had breathed before I spoke? Those moments cost you more than you realize, and not just peace, but trust, relationships, opportunities, self-respect. Now let me ask another question. Have you ever regretted staying calm? Have you ever looked back and said, I wish I had yelled more. I wish I had panicked. I wish I had snapped. No, because calm never costs you. It protects you. You see, calmness allows you to see. It gives you a higher view, while others are consumed by the moment. You are watching the whole game. You are not reacting to the move, you are predicting the pattern. You become a chess master. In a world full of checkers players, you move when it's time, not when you're triggered. You strike when it's wise, not when you're emotional. That's what makes you unstoppable. The truth is, people don't know how to handle someone they can't manipulate emotionally. They will say you're cold. They'll say you're detached. They'll say you're heartless. But don't fall for that. Don't let their insecurity define your inner peace. You are not cold. You are composed. You are not heartless. You are disciplined. You are not weak for staying calm. You are a master of your state. And that is a level most people will never reach. So next time the world throws fire at you, don't rush to extinguish it. Let it burn. Watch it. Learn from it. But do not become it. Because your calm is not just about surviving chaos. It's about owning it. It's about walking through fire and leaving no smoke on your soul. You want to dominate life. Start here. Master your tone. Control your breath. Slow your response. Don't feed every fire. Don't answer every insult. Don't fight every battle. Become the one who sees everything and reacts to nothing until it matters. That's how you win. Not just once, but always. 9. When you no longer react, you become untouchable. There is a shift that happens deep inside you, not all at once, but little by little. Over time, it begins quietly. You start noticing that the things that used to upset you don't anymore. The opinions that once pierced through your heart now pass through you like smoke. The people who once controlled your emotions with a single word now seem powerless in your presence. That is not numbness. That is not detachment. That is evolution. You are not becoming cold. You are becoming untouchable. And not in a loud, arrogant, show-off kind of way. No, that's insecurity disguised as power. I'm talking about a quiet invincibility, a calm strength, a grounded energy that cannot be manipulated, provoked, or shaken. I lived that transformation, and I want to teach it to you. You see, life will never stop throwing tests at you. People will lie. People will disrespect you. People will overlook you, betray you, underestimate you, talk behind your back, and try to push your buttons. That's not a theory. That's a guarantee. But here's the secret that changes everything. None of it can truly harm you unless you choose to react. And that's what most people do. They react. Instantly, emotionally, blindly, like a flame catching on dry leaves. One comment and they're in a rage. One mistake and they fall apart. One failure and they think the world is ending. And with every reaction, they bleed out their energy. They hand over control to people who were never worthy of holding it. But when you stop reacting, you start reclaiming yourself, piece by piece, moment by moment. You build space between stimulus and response. You start to observe instead of absorb. You start to think, breathe, and reflect instead of explode. That's the shift I made in my own life. I stopped letting people dictate my energy. I stopped letting the world pull me in every direction like a puppet on strings. I became the calm in the storm. I let go of the need to fight every battle. I learned to win with silence. I understood that not every attack requires a counterattack. Sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. Because here's the truth. When you don't react, you take away their weapon. If someone insults you and you stay calm, they lose. If someone betrays you and you move forward with grace, they lose. If someone tries to tear you down and you keep building in silence, they lose. Not because you've hurt them, but because they realize you're not playing their game. And when you refuse to play the game, you rise above it. You don't need to clap back. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't need to drag their name through the mud to restore your dignity. Why? Because your dignity is not in their hands. It's in yours. And once you know that, they can't touch it. People will call you different when you stop reacting. They'll say, you've changed. And they'll be right. You have changed. You've stopped leaking energy. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You've stopped losing sleep over opinions that will never pay your bills or shape your destiny. You've stopped being the person they could control with a glare or a word or a rejection. That is growth. That is freedom. That is power. And you know what's incredible? When you reach this level of inner stillness, life responds differently. People start treating you with more respect. They sense that you are not easily moved. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with fewer words, but those words carry more weight. You become a presence, a force. And not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. You don't shake. You don't bend. You don't panic. You don't break. You're not trying to control the world anymore. You're just no longer letting it control you. That is the difference between someone who survives life and someone who leads it. Now understand this. Becoming untouchable doesn't mean nothing affects you emotionally. It means that you've trained yourself to handle emotions with discipline. It means that you no longer allow emotions to make decisions for you. You no longer let pain define your path. You feel everything, but you are mastered by nothing. That's not coldness. That's maturity. Because in the end, the most powerful person isn't the one who knows how to strike first. It's the one who knows when not to strike at all. It's the one who can sit in fire and still be at peace. It's the one who can feel the pull to react and choose stillness instead. So when someone asks you, why didn't you react? You look them in the eye and say, because I've already won the battle you're still trying to start. That's the power of being untouchable. And once you master it, the world has no hold on you anymore. 10. The less you react, the more you control the outcome. There's a profound truth I want you to absorb, not just with your ears, but with your soul. It's this: the more you react, the more control you surrender. The less you react, the more power you reclaim. It's not about being passive. It's about being precise. Because real control doesn't come from domination. It comes from restraint. I've seen it in combat. I've seen it in conversation. I've seen it in life. The person who reacts first loses the edge. The person who stays calm shapes the entire direction of what happens next. That's what most people don't realize. Reaction is not action. It is surrender. It is allowing the world to dictate your internal state, your decisions, and ultimately, your fate. Let me take you back to a moment in my own life, one of many, in fact. A time when someone insulted me publicly. They tried to humiliate me. They were louder, older, more experienced in the world's politics. I could have reacted. I could have exploded. I had the skill to fight, the words to argue, the fire to destroy, but I didn't. I chose stillness. I looked them in the eye and offered nothing back but calm. And you know what happened? They unraveled because they were counting on my reaction. They needed my response to validate their own aggression. When I gave them nothing, they collapsed under the weight of their own insecurity. That's when I knew when you stop reacting, you stop dancing to other people's music. You start hearing your own rhythm. You start directing the pace of the conversation, the tone of the room, the shape of the moment, and that is control. Control doesn't mean manipulating others. It doesn't mean forcing outcomes. It means owning your presence so completely that nothing external can disturb your internal. It means being so centered that even when chaos surrounds you, you remain the calm eye in the middle of the storm. You've probably noticed this in your own life. Think of a time when someone tried to provoke you. Maybe it was a friend who betrayed your trust. Maybe it was a stranger who disrespected you. Maybe it was your own family, pushing every button you have. And what happened when you reacted? Your heart rate spiked. Your thoughts became cloudy. You said things you later regretted. Maybe you felt justified in the moment. But when the dust settled, did you feel stronger or smaller? That's what reaction does. It promises relief, but delivers regret. Now think about a time, maybe just once, when you paused. When someone tried to pull you into drama and you simply didn't go. You breathed. You observed. You allowed the moment to pass without jumping into the fire. What happened next? The power shifted. You became untouchable. You maintained control, not just of the situation, but of yourself. That's the art. That's the science. That's the truth. The less you react, the more control you have, not only over outcomes, but over how you feel, how others perceive you, and how your life unfolds. In martial arts, the most dangerous fighter is not the one who strikes first. It's the one who sees every angle, who anticipates every move, who moves only when it's necessary and with absolute clarity. He doesn't waste energy. He doesn't reveal emotion. He doesn't flinch under pressure. That's the one you fear. That's the one who wins before the fight even begins. You must carry that same spirit into your daily life, in relationships, in your career, in moments of conflict. You don't win by reacting emotionally. You win by responding with intention. Now, don't confuse this with silence out of fear. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about silence out of strategy, stillness out of wisdom. I'm talking about choosing your responses with precision, knowing that not every battle is worth your sword. Not every insult deserves your fire. Not every emotion must be acted upon. This world is full of people who can't wait to react. They are addicted to it. A comment online, a misunderstanding in a relationship, a slight disagreement at work, boom, instant explosion. And then they wonder why their lives feel so out of control, why their minds feel so noisy, why their peace always slips away. It's because they never learned to pause. They never learned the power of restraint. Let me give you something practical. Every time you feel the impulse to react, pause. Just one breath, one heartbeat. In that space, ask yourself, is this helping me or hurting me? Is this reaction moving me toward peace or deeper into chaos? Is this response aligned with the person I'm trying to become? Most of the time, that one moment of awareness is enough to shift your entire path. And the more you practice this, the more you will notice something profound. The world starts reacting to you. You're no longer being pulled into storms. You're setting the emotional tone in every interaction. You're no longer under the control of petty people, temporary emotions, or outside circumstances. You're anchored, clear, focused. You're not avoiding life, you're mastering it. People might not understand it at first. They might call you cold, heartless, distant. But deep down, they feel something else. They feel your power. They feel your control. They feel your ability to stand in the fire and not burn. And eventually, they will respect it even if they never admit it out loud. So I say this to you, not just as Bruce Lee the fighter, but as Bruce Lee the student of life. Train yourself to be calm. Train yourself to pause. Train yourself to sit with discomfort without needing to lash out. Because every time you don't react, you grow. You rise. You build unshakable confidence that no applause can give and no insult can take away. And when you live that way long enough, something extraordinary happens. You stop being controlled. You start controlling the moment. And when you control the moment, you start controlling the outcome. That's the highest form of freedom. And it all begins with one decision: to react or not to. Choose well, because your whole life depends on it. 11. Rise so high that nothing can reach you anymore, not even your old self. There comes a point in your journey where it's no longer about proving others wrong. It's no longer about being admired, accepted, respected, or even understood. There comes a moment when your only mission is to rise. Not rise in fame, not rise in wealth, but to rise in depth, in peace, in emotional sovereignty, in mastery of self, so complete that even the version of you from yesterday wouldn't recognize who you've become today. You see, most people believe power is external. They think it's in reputation, followers, connections, or applause. But I've lived long enough, fought hard enough, and been tested deeply enough to know real power is silent. Real power is invisible to those who chase noise. Real power is when you have become so grounded, so inwardly aligned, that nothing can move you anymore. Not their insults, not their opinions, not their silence. Not even your own thoughts when they try to drag you back into old patterns. That's the level I'm inviting you to reach, where you no longer just act unbothered, you are beyond being bothered. But let me be honest with you, this level is not easy to reach. You have to go through fire to get there. You have to endure betrayal without becoming bitter. You have to face misunderstanding without rushing to defend yourself. You have to feel the sting of rejection and still love yourself enough to keep rising. You have to meet the darkest parts of yourself, the insecurities, the fears, the emotional addictions to drama, chaos, and being right. And one by one, you must let them go. Not in a flash of enlightenment, but in small, disciplined choices made every day. That's how I did it. People think I was born with confidence. They're wrong. I built it by tearing down everything inside me that wasn't real. I dismantled my ego piece by piece. I examined my reactions, my impulses, my need to fight every battle. And what I found was this: the more I reacted, the more I stayed trapped in the version of me they wanted to control. But the more I chose peace, the more I became untouchable, no, by others, but by my past self. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever noticed how much of your suffering doesn't come from others, but from yourself? Your overthinking, your need to respond, your fear of being misunderstood, your attachment to people who have already shown you they cannot meet you where you're going. That's what keeps you stuck. That's what drains you. Not the world, not the enemy, not the critic, but the voice inside your own head that still thinks you need to fight every storm, prove every point, explain every move, defend every inch of your identity. That voice is your true opponent. And the day you stop listening to it is the day you rise. Because rising is not about climbing some ladder. It's about shedding weight, letting go of everything that pulls you into the mud. And that includes your former self, the one who took everything personally, the one who stayed awake at night replaying conversations, the one who needed approval to feel worthy, the one who panicked when misunderstood, the one who chased closure from people who never even gave you clarity. You have to bury that version of you not with hate, but with love, and say, thank you for surviving, but I'm not that person anymore. From there, you begin to rise not above others, but above noise, above gossip, above triggers, above emotional dependency. You begin to access a level of self-command that most people will never taste because they're too busy responding to everything that doesn't matter. You want to know what real dominance looks like? It's not shouting in a room to be heard. It's walking into a room and needing to say nothing because your energy says everything. It's when your absence speaks louder than other people's presence. It's when your silence becomes more powerful than their arguments. It's when people start wondering what you're thinking, but they'll never know because you've mastered the art of inner freedom. You're not just calm, you are peace. You're not just detached, you are focused. You're not just resilient, you are reborn. And at this level, you realize something beautiful. You don't attract chaos anymore because you no longer carry it. You don't attract disrespect anymore because you no longer tolerate it. You don't attract confusion anymore because your clarity repels it. The world responds to the vibration you live in. And when you live in peace, the world rearranges itself to protect it. Not because it's fair, not because you force it, but because you've become unavailable to anything less. At this height, nothing can reach you, not petty words, not fragile egos, not drama, not doubt. Even pain changes. It still comes, but it passes through you like wind through bamboo. You bend, you feel, but you no longer break. Why? Because your roots are deeper than the storm. Because your soul is no longer looking for proof. It knows. That's the power of rising. You are no longer here to respond. You are here to radiate. You are no longer here to fight for your worth. You are the worth. You are no longer here to manage people's opinions. You are here to walk your truth in silence, in clarity, in power. So when someone tries to pull you back into your old ways, don't react. Don't argue. Don't explain. Just smile. Smile like someone who has already left that battlefield. Smile like someone who has nothing to defend, nothing to prove, nothing to lose. Because you've already won. And when your old self comes knocking, reminding you of who you used to be, how you used to react, how you used to fall apart in the face of pressure, you simply say, that version of me no longer lives here. I've risen. And now, nothing can reach me anymore.